All right, good evening, everyone. It is 6 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and get started. Hello, and my name is Michael Spaeth. I am a principal planner for the town of Oro Valley and host of tonight's focus area meeting for the Rams Canyon and Rams Pass subdivisions. This meeting is part of the public outreach process for the private property owners' applications proposing new uses and standards at the Oro Valley Marketplace. The requests are to permit the development of apartments, hotels, and an entertainment district with recreational amenities. Thank you for joining us this evening, as it is integral to hear from you. Our primary purpose tonight is to gather feedback from neighbors and provide you an opportunity to ask questions and comments. A formal neighborhood meeting was held in March of 2020 where we heard from many of you. Tonight, the applicant is going to present a revised plan addressing many of the comments heard during that meeting, and then we want to hear from you. So for tonight's agenda. First, I will quickly provide information about the review process and ways for you to stay involved. A little background about the property. I'll briefly cover the applicant's requests and then summarize the community's feedback from the first neighborhood meeting. I do want you to know that we did receive the additional questions and comments that were provided by residents of both neighborhoods. The town received that and has passed that along to the applicant as well. Following my presentation, Ms. Carrie Sylvan from Lazarus and Sylvan, representing the property owner, will provide detailed information about their proposal and any changes that were made since the first neighborhood meeting. Then it is your turn to ask questions and comments. And lastly, again, I'll provide more information about the upcoming meetings as the process moves forward. I also wanted to let you know that an informational video has been posted on this project's webpage on ovprojects.com. If you haven't seen the video yet, we strongly encourage you to do so. Our number one goal tonight is to have a fair, efficient, and productive meeting. At this point, you may be familiar with online interactive Zoom meetings, but for those who aren't or just need a refresher, I will provide more information about how Zoom works and how to participate shortly. If anyone is having trouble using Zoom during the meeting, please contact Malini Sims, principal planner with the town, at 520-229-4836 for assistance. Tonight's meeting is scheduled to go no later than 7:30 p.m. Finally, I'd like to note that this Zoom meeting video and PowerPoint presentation will be posted on ovprojects.com as soon as possible. Comments will also be posted online on the project webpage in a neighborhood meeting summary, as well as forwarded to the Planning and Zoning Commission and Town Council when they consider the applications. The applicant's proposal includes 3 separate yet related requests. First is a request to amend the existing zoning standards. Second is to reclassify the privately owned wash within the shopping center to allow for the development of the entertainment district. No changes to Big Wash are proposed. Lastly is to bring all the pieces together through a revised site and landscape design. I will go through each of these briefly later in my presentation, and the applicant is going to provide greater detail during her presentation. For these types of applications, the town requires applicants to engage in community outreach, as it is important to hear your comments and questions early and often. So where are we in the process? We are at the focus area meeting stage of the public participation process. Tonight's meeting is the second of 4. This process started with the in-person community-wide neighborhood meeting in March 2020, which had a significant amount of community input regarding the proposal. Since then, the applicant has provided a formal submittal and resubmittal with more specifics about the requests, which staff has been reviewing for code compliance. I previously mentioned that an informational video has been posted on ovprojects.com that was intended to provide updated information about the project prior to the focus area meetings. The 4 focus area meetings are scheduled throughout August, the purpose of which are to give immediate neighbors an opportunity to have an in-depth conversation with the applicant about specific issues affecting their neighborhood. While focus area meetings are open to everyone, priority is given to neighbors in each focus area to provide an opportunity for this in-depth discussion. After the focus area meetings, a second community-wide neighborhood meeting is scheduled for September 13th. Please note, this meeting had been previously scheduled for September 14th, but has since been moved to the 13th. This meeting is to bring the results of the focus area meeting together, view any proposed changes, and answer the questions and hear additional feedback from the general public. The applicant's requests all require consideration by the Planning and Zoning Commission and Town Council. The dates are not set for these hearings, but the public will have an opportunity to speak at each, and notices will be sent out in advance once scheduled. Property owners near the site and within each focus area will continue to be notified of upcoming meetings directly by mail. Yellow signs will be posted in multiple locations on the site, and information will be posted online at ovprojects.com. If you weren't notified about this meeting and wish to be for future meetings, please send us a request with your name and address to ask@oralvalleyaz.gov. While our focus through this public outreach process is on the future of the development, I'd like to provide a brief history and background. The development's design was approved in 2006 through an extensive public participation process. The center opened in 2008 with over 800,000 square feet of retail, restaurant, and office space. And to date, a number of building pads remain vacant. A couple of important elements of the previous approval include the multi-use path along the edge of the development, which was recently redone and connects to the larger county trail system. Also notable was the restoration of Big Wash, shown here in green, which was restored from a previously degraded area to the dense vegetation seen today. This area is now owned by Pima County and is permanently protected as open space. The applicant, as I stated earlier, is requesting to permit apartments and revise some zoning standards. Specifically, the applicant is seeking to adjust permitted building height for portions of the development and to reduce the building setbacks and buffer yards for portions along Oracle and Tangerine roads. Again, Ms. Sylvan will provide greater detail about their proposal, but as a brief overview, an apartment with a 75-foot height and a 49-foot height hotel are proposed along Tangerine Road, shown as A and B. A 49-foot hotel at the entertainment district is proposed where the C is located. An apartment with a 59-foot height and 49-foot height, an apartment with a 59-foot height and a 49-foot high hotel are proposed along Oracle Road, notated by the D and E locations on screen. Letter F is an alternate location for the hotel proposed in location E. Also worth noting, the applicant is pursuing purchase of right-of-way along both Tangerine and Oracle roads to increase the developable area. The second request is to reclassify the privately owned wash within the center, shown in yellow, to allow for the development of recreational amenities, a gathering area, and event space known as the entertainment district. Lastly, is to bring all the pieces together. The applicant is proposing a revised site and landscape design, which will show the design and circulation of the proposed apartments, hotels, and entertainment district, as well as details regarding the design of parking and circulation of the undeveloped areas. With regard to the applicant's requests, key concerns that were brought up during the first neighborhood meeting, as well as the additional questions and comments received by staff and forwarded to the applicant, thank you for sending those, were the need for an amount of proposed apartment units, the proposed height of the apartments and hotels with regard to view impacts of the Catalina Mountains, parking and the amount of traffic the new uses will generate, specifically increased traffic along Oracle Road, lighting and noise associated with the uses and entertainment district, and lastly, the projected construction timeline and when new uses are proposed to be open, specifically the uses proposed in the entertainment district. So with a summary of that first neighborhood meeting, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Sylvan, representing the property owner, to provide more detail regarding their proposal and to discuss these previous concerns. Ms. Sylvan? Should be good to go.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay, Michael?
Yes.
Okay. Want to welcome everybody. Thank you for taking time out on a Thursday evening to be with us tonight. We are very excited about this project. As Mr. Spade indicated, we've been working with town since our first official neighborhood meeting, which was, I think, the last in-person meeting, at least I was involved in, March 10th of 2020, before the global pandemic hit. We have been working with staff on the layout of the project and some of the heights of the multi-use, multi-family areas that I'll talk about in a minute. Town staff is reviewing the most recent updated submittal, has provided comments, and we're continuing to work through those comments and wanted to re-engage in the public outreach as Mr. Spade outlined. Go ahead to the next slide. First, I want to introduce Town West for those of you who weren't able to be with us in March of last year. Town West is a family-owned developer. They've been in this region for over 40 years. They purchased Oro Valley Marketplace in September of 2019. What you're seeing over on the right-hand side of your screen are some other developments that Town West owns, and they are very committed and have worked hard to create successful developments that the community can be proud of. One of them I want to highlight, Casa Presidio, which is up on the top, was an apartment complex along Fort Lowell that had been dilapidated, and the one of the city council members in the city of Tucson reached out to Town West and asked them to really revitalize that area, which they did, and it's continued to be a successful reinvestment and repositioning of those apartments in the central Tucson area. Town West, when they purchased Oro Valley Marketplace, did so with a commitment to reimagine the marketplace, to create a vibrant place that people can be excited about and play, live, work, shop, and stay and really appreciate the beauty of Oro Valley. Go ahead. This is a prime location. Most of you know that. You live right here. It's centrally located. It's 105 acres of property that is intended to be developed and is ready for that development. It's along two major roads and near employment centers, both to the north and south. Go ahead. The challenge, we all know our relationship with bricks and mortar at retail is changing, but we also know we still want to go out and interact and have places to interact. And the challenge with this 105 acres is a challenge for all of us. For the new owner, it's needing to be financially successful. For the surrounding neighborhoods and future residents of the area, it's to have a successful place that we can gather for connection, entertainment, retail, and living spaces. And for the town, we need to really create the community and economic success for the project. The construction sales tax, bed tax from the hotel and retail sales tax are a lot of the base of financial income for a town so that it can provide the services that are needed and desired by the community. We need to figure out how to create spaces for that connection and entertainment. And there is actually a formula for repositioning properties like this that have worked and do work in today's market and today's climate. Go ahead. The solution is that the marketplace has the infrastructure and the undeveloped areas to make it successful. And we really need to create a village center to live, work, and recreate in a walkable setting. Go ahead. We've researched. Hate when that happens. I'm going to pause while we get the PowerPoint back up. Thanks, Mr. Spade. Researching, we've, there it goes again. I'll keep going and you can catch up. We have researched other successful projects both in the region and around both the state and other places, other cities. I think I'm back one. That we can create lifestyle, entertainment, dining, special events, and special places for those events. And there's two key components that were not originally contemplated for this area that are important for the repositioning, and that's the residential and the hospitality. And Town West wants to accomplish this and make it really unique to Oro Valley. Go ahead. This map shows the opportunities we have to make this a very special place. What we know is that we need to be creative. We need to turn these liabilities, which are vacant retail spaces, as well as the graded pads that are ready for redevelopment, and the opportunity to take the man-made drainage way, which is the letter D in this map. And again, it was a man-made private drainage way, and really activate it so that it can become, rather than a separation between two segments of this area, really activate it and bring this whole concept together. And that's part of what we're really excited about. Go ahead. The concept plan, Mr. Spaeth already went over just the basic components. I'm going to get into a little more detail. We have the two opportunities up on Tangerine, the center space, entertainment space that I've talked about, and then over onto Oracle. So I'm going to start, go ahead, with the center space, what we're calling the entertainment center. So that's C. You can see the star on this slide. Go ahead. This is the entertainment area. I'm going to walk through what we're envisioning up on what would be the north, but it's on the left side of your screen because we had to fit this on the screen, is a 1.4 acre versatile space for public events, art shows, things like seasonal ice rinks. There are a number of activities that currently take place on the Oro Valley marketplace area that this gives a very purposeful spot for that engagement. That is up against Tangerine Road. You can see, to orient yourself, the Walmart down on the lower part of the screen and Century Theater. So it's in that area. The middle space, we're proposing a combination of a public area, park-like area, along with a hotel. It's a space for a splash pad, sandy beach, other areas, playground, wading pool, those kinds of amenities. We know water is a very important resource in our region. It's also really important in creating spaces that people want to gather, and we want to create that space. We will be working with the town on the recycling and the other appropriate use of water in this area. The southern area, we're looking at an extension of that open space and gathering space, but more of an amenity for a potential cluster of restaurants. So things like a beer garden, other open amenities and seating areas and restaurants. So this space, we are still accomplishing, and we will still accomplish all of the drainage required in this area. And there will be some natural drainage spaces, but we're really trying to, like I said, activate it and create and get rid of the separation that this space creates for the center. Go ahead. I'm going to show some renderings. These are some of the inspirational ideas that came about in creating and starting to put together this space. Go ahead to the next one. This just shows some additional, you can see the rock climbing and the beer garden, and then we are directly adjacent to the loop in the southern portion of this area. So the idea for our coffee shop and maybe a bike repair area is something that's really exciting to the ownership. Go ahead. This just gives you some idea of renderings. These are not the colors that are required in the Oro Valley Village Center. You'll see in their architectural guidelines, you'll see those in just a minute. But these are some of the renderings, so you can see the space. You can see how the retail and the lobby on the lower level, and then another couple of stories of hotel rooms, opportunity to create a streetscape and a really inviting connectivity between essentially the Walmart and the shop and the movie theater. Go ahead. This just zooms you in a little bit further. Go ahead. This is from the other side, so the movie theater is kind of behind us and to the right. And this gives you a sense of how you can come out of the movie theater and head over into this area, maybe for dinner, lunch, whatever time you're going to the movie theater, and engage in the community space. For the restaurants, we already have, as most of you know, Chard, San Carlos, Keg, and the Olive Garden. We're going to be hopefully adding more. What we know is we used to think that restaurants competed with each other in centers like this. But what we've discovered is if you create a cluster of restaurants, people know they can come and find food, and they actually all end up being very successful. Go ahead. The hotel is a key component. Again, we're talking about doing retail and things engaging on the lower level, and then having the hotel above that. Go ahead. And this gives you a better sense of what a hotel that would comply with the architectural guidelines in the Oro Valley Village Center or Oro Valley Marketplace could look like. Go ahead. I'm going to flip us over now to the Tangerine Apartments, which is letter A. This is that graded area that is on the west side of Water Harvest Way as you come in off of Tangerine. It is ready for development. It is a lower site than anything around it other than the wash, meaning across the street where Oro Valley Hospital is as well. Go ahead. We worked with staff to move the taller apartments. We originally had those on Oracle and moved them over to this site, to Tangerine, in large part because the goal was to work on the view sheds of Push Ridge. And over on this side, when you're either from Catalina Shadows or kind of looking to the north, what you're seeing is Oro Valley Hospital. So that's the view that it blocks rather than our mountains. As I said, it's already graded and ready for development. This is proposed at a 500 unit or a 5-story with corner lofts. The maximum height is 75 feet, which is the same maximum height as Oro Valley Hospital across the street. But again, this is at a lower grade than Oro Valley Hospital. So it's at a lower starting point. You can see the access. There's a right in, right out over on the left side of your screen where that roundabout is. That's predominantly for residents only. The other main entrance would be off of Water Harvest Way and coming into the apartments in that other roundabout with the parking. You can also see this is activating the loop area down on the south. So that's the bike path loop area down along the south and over on the west. Pima County has also been working to encourage densification along the loop so that people use this amenity that's been provided to the community. So you're seeing a lot of apartments and other residential type uses along the loop in other areas of Pima County. Go ahead. So the parking, that previous slide showed the parking on kind of the ground floor, and then the apartments would be above. So this is showing you some of the amenity spaces as well. It is a broken up building. It's not a straight across building. The amenity space, we have things like a clubhouse, a small pool, dog park, enough to make it feel like a home and an apartment, but really encourage the residents to be interacting with the rest of the Oro Valley Village Center. Go ahead. This is the second, third, and fourth floor plan, and this is the fifth floor plan. Go ahead. We are going to meet the Oro Valley Marketplace architectural guidelines. These are views that are not meant to be view sheds. They're meant to show the architecture of the building. So the highest points are 75 feet, but what you can see is those are only in portions of the building. There's meant to be, and it's showing the variation in roof lines. So a lot of the building will be below the height, the 75-foot height. This is the view from the southeast, and you can see the proximity to the loop as well. Go ahead to the next. And this is the view from the southwest, as if you're sort of standing in the wash. And you can sort of see a smaller, one of the lower portions of the Oro Valley Hospital peeking out on the far left-hand side behind the building. Go ahead. I'm going to flip us over from we're going to stick with the apartment theme. So I'm going to flip us over from the Tangerine Apartments over to the Oracle Apartments. That area, we've lowered the height and the intensity of these apartments on this side. It's approximately 229 units. And it's a combination of 4- and 5-story building on a lower elevation of the site. And what I mean by that is context matters. So the elevation of the site is lower. Oracle Road is higher all the way throughout. Even at the lowest point adjacent to this set of apartments, Oracle is still 10 feet higher than grade. The nearest adjacent home to the west is 22 feet above the grade of this site and over 1,700 feet away. Go ahead. Again, the layout, the parking is kind of in the middle of the project. I'll show you in a minute the pool and amenity space that's going to be in the middle above that. And we're potentially going to have some ground floor lobby and retail space. Go ahead. This is the second level, which is some additional parking, and then the apartments as well on the second level. Go ahead. The third and fourth levels, this is where you're seeing the pool and the courtyard, and that area is completely surrounded by the building. And go ahead. This is the third and fourth, and then only a portion of the building has a 5th story. And I want to talk through that a little bit. That's in the area where Oracle Road grade is actually even higher. And it's to help provide architectural variation and to add a 5th floor in the area again where the surrounding grade is higher. Go ahead. This is where you're seeing variation in height. So this is the 4-story component. This height is between 43 and 49 feet. As Mr. Spaeth indicated, the current height on the Oro Valley Marketplace is 39 feet. It does permit another 10 feet for architectural elements. So the old Dick's Sporting Goods is a good benchmark for a 49-foot height that has the 39 plus the 10 feet of architecture. We are asking for this portion of the apartments at the 4 stories. And again, the heights you're seeing because the variation in roof line is 43 to 49 feet, similar to the top of the old Dick's Sporting Goods. Go ahead. This gives you a sense of that internal pool space. So the active outdoor space is completely surrounded by the building, which helps significantly with any noise in the area. You'll see clubhouse, fitness, and a pool. Go ahead. This shows the 5-story area. Again, less than 50% of the building is permitted to be at the 5-story. It is in the area where Oracle Road is at a higher elevation. You can see it adds to the architectural variation. We did lower the height from the March 2020 meeting. We were proposing another 20 feet of height. Some of the loft areas were higher than the 75 feet that we're proposing over on Tangerine. Again, these slides are not the visual perspectives. They're meant to highlight the architecture and the compatibility with the rest of the Oro Valley Village Center architectural requirements. Go ahead. This gives you a sense of some of the inspirational boards, the areas that we did some research on, the type of residential that fits within. These are smaller sites. So they're the garden type apartments, and some of those apartments are much harder to fit into these areas, and they blend better with that feel of a mixed use development. Go ahead. The last thing I want to say about those before I move to the hotels is that these are condo type apartments, and we have heard from surrounding businesses and corporations that they really do need this type of living, thanks Michael, an environment to attract employees to the area, and it blends an apartment, village, and community space. And then we're going to move on to the hospitality. Go ahead. So we're proposing 2 hotels, the Tangerine Hotel, which is letter B, and then the Oracle Hotel. And I'm going to kind of lump these together a little bit for this presentation. Go ahead. Hospitality is great to add because it also means that guests to the region are spending their money and adding to our tax revenues. Pedestrian connectivity will be provided and encouraged from both hotels to the rest of the center. And again, they'll conform with the design guidelines. This just shows you the Tangerine Hotel on the left, how it would be placed on the site. That's right at Tangerine and Water Harvest Way across from the apartments, about 150 rooms with the associated parking. And again, that's on a site that's ready for redevelopment. The Oracle Road site is also in an area, and whether the hotel ends up here or on the alternate site to the north, those are graded sites ready for development, and it's proposed at about 112 rooms. And both of the hotels, we are requesting the height of the 49 feet, which again is the amount of height that is permitted with the architectural on the site right now. But we're asking for the 49 feet so we can include the additional hotel rooms. Go ahead. This gives you a sense of the hotels that were kind of the inspiration for this project. Again, these are hotels that tend to be in the middle of mixed use areas and the redevelopment of these kinds of centers. Go ahead. This gives you a sense of the Tangerine Hotel and the architecture that could be utilized, meeting the architectural guidelines. Go ahead. And this gives you a sample of the Oracle Road Hotel. Go ahead. So I mentioned this at the beginning. Town West vision is the vision that we're all trying to achieve. We really want to reimagine. It's a prime opportunity. It's an area that needs investment and create that vibrant place that will be successful. And we know from other areas that these are the kinds of developments that are successful. So Mr. Spaeth already went through the requests, PAD amendment that includes the height. The hotel's at 49 feet, similar to the old Dick's Sporting Goods. Apartment 75 feet on Tangerine, which is no higher than the Oro Valley Hospital. On the Oracle Road, 59 feet or 5 stories as measured from the Oracle Road elevation, and that's in the spot where Oracle Road is higher. And then the remaining would be 4 stories at the 49 feet, which is the same as the hotels. And there were some other amendments that he mentioned as well. Environmentally sensitive lands ordinance amendment to acknowledge that center recreation area is man-made and not a completely natural area. And we want to activate that, but still achieve the drainage. And we'll be revising the conceptual site plan and the architectural approvals as well. We will probably revise signage to reflect the updated concepts, and that will either come simultaneously or at a later date. We're very excited about re-engaging with the community and moving this project forward. A lot of the existing tenants are aware of the vision and are really excited. And as some of you may have seen during COVID, even during COVID, we've been able to add some restaurants and some other uses as well. And again, a lot of it is because they understand what is committed to and what's at least desired by the ownership for repositioning the project. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Spaeth.
All right, thank you, Ms. Sylvan. Before we get started with your questions and comments, I'd like to explain how you can all participate this evening. To ask a question or make a comment, please raise your hand. There are 2 ways to do this. For those participating via phone, press *9 to raise your hand. You may need to use the passcode shown on screen here, 164724, to get into the meeting. For those participating on the Zoom app or website, find the participants icon, click it to open a dialog box where you will see an option to raise your hand as shown on the right-hand side of this slide. Raised hands will be moved to the top of the list in the order in which they are raised. When it is your turn, please make sure you are not muted on your personal device and that your video is on by using the microphone and video icons shown on this slide. When I announce who is up to speak, I will also announce the next person whose turn it will be to speak, so that person is prepared. If you are having any technical issues with Zoom or have further questions about my Zoom participation instructions, again, please contact Ms. Malini Sims anytime during the meeting at 520-229-4836 to request further assistance. We're going to do our best to get through everyone's questions and comments. Again, the focus of tonight's conversation is for residents of the Rams Canyon and Rams Pass subdivisions who will be given priority. If we have time remaining at the end of the meeting, I will ask for questions from anyone who does not live in one of those two subdivisions. Please keep your input to no longer than 3 minutes out of a fairness to all participants who wish to be heard. I will respectfully remind folks of this guideline as needed, as the goal of this meeting is to have a productive conversation about the project and provide constructive feedback. Please keep that in mind as we move through the meeting tonight. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started with your questions and comments, and I will preemptively apologize in advance if I butcher anybody's last name. Do my best to sound it out. Are there any questions or comments? Please raise your hand if there are. I don't see any at the moment, but we'll hang on for a little while to make sure folks have the opportunity to ask questions if they'd like. Oh, all right, we have one taker. Alec, you are up first. You are unmuted and should be ready to go. Looks like your video is already on.
Great.
Go right ahead.
Great. So we have a few questions. The first question is our access to Oracle Road right now. There's no stoplight or anything, and traffic is usually light enough that we're able to get onto Oracle or cross across Oracle if we're going south. Are there any plans to put in a stoplight or a crosswalk or something like that? That's the first question. And I guess the second question is, what's the expectation of how much more traffic, how many more visitors, and how much more throughput are we going to have on Oracle and Tangerine because of this?
Okay. Thank you for those two questions. I will hand it off to Ms. Sylvan first, and I know our town engineer's on our meeting tonight as well, so if he's got anything to add, we'll certainly kick it over to him. So Ms. Sylvan, do you have any information on those two things?
Did it unmute?
Yep, you're good to go.
Okay, sorry. Thank you, Alec, for the questions. I'm gonna actually defer most of this to Mr. Kiesler. Is that who's here from traffic? Okay.
Yes.
What I can tell you is that back when Mr. Spaeth explained the history of the project, and this project was always intended to be entirely retail use and fully developed in all of these areas that we're talking about going ahead and developing. The traffic impact analysis was done at that time, and a lot of the roadway improvements, including Water Harvest Way and the ingress and egress both on Tangerine and Oracle for this project, were created based on that estimated traffic. We've done an updated traffic analysis that town staff has reviewed, and actually the change in mix of these uses only adds an additional 10% of traffic to the area, which in the future condition that was already anticipated. And the AM peak, hang on just a second, I want to make sure that I'm accurate. Hold on a second. The AM peak, the morning peak, which is about, I think that's 7 to 9 or 6 to 9 AM. Paul's going to correct me when I screw any of this up. That is actually a little bit increased because of the folks who might be living the residential, leaving it around the same time. The PM peak, which is the outbound, goes down a little bit because the residents are actually coming home. So if it was all retail, it would be people would be leaving it around the same time on peak. Because we're mixing some residential in the evening, it should help with that a little bit. That is the extent of my response to this, but I know Mr. Kiesler has a lot more information and I'm just going to be quiet. Go ahead, Paul.
There you go. Thank you, Ms. Sylvan. Yeah, well, Mr. Kiesler, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Space. Thank you, Ms. Sylvan. For the audience, Ms. Sylvan did touch on a little bit of this. When the original development went through back in 2006, the then developer went ahead and built all of the traffic mitigation measures needed for full build out of the center. And that was the full turn lanes on Oracle, the full turn lanes on Tangerine, Walter Harvest Way with its full carrying capacity. Now, move ahead several years later, and we're talking about this rezoning. Most of the day, the traffic pattern is exactly the same. However, as Ms. Sylvan alluded to, the AM exiting is going to be different. So when it was originally retail, of course, you would expect in the AM, people are just coming in. Now that we're looking at hotel and, or the applicant's looking at hotel and apartments, that will generate a little bit more on the AM. So the outbound on the AM is 215 more trips. And to put that in perspective, that's going to increase the traffic on Oracle by approximately 5%. If you look at the existing volumes, and these are kind of the best volumes we have are pre-COVID. So looking at the traffic on Tangerine, it's going to be a higher percentage because again, there is not much traffic on Tangerine. And Mr. Spaeth, am I coming across okay?
You are, yes. I was trying to get the slide up for you and I was frustrated with the speed of my computer, sorry.
No problem, no problem. So Tangerine is very much under capacity, and Oracle Road, which we all know is fairly busy, particularly in the morning. It will increase by about 5% due to this proposed development. I'd also like to touch on the our residents' first question, which was, I assume you're in Ramsfield Pass, Rams Canyon, your access to Oracle Road. I'm a huge proponent of putting a traffic light out there. In fact, I've been working with ADOT for years to see if we could get one. Unfortunately, we've done several studies and the traffic that comes out of your subdivision just doesn't trip the warrants in order for us to put a traffic light in. That is, there's a set of triggers. There's a certain, amount of traffic that's needed in order for a stoplight to be put in. And if you put a stoplight in without meeting these warrants or these triggers, you can actually end up doing something that could cause an accident because it's unexpected. And in your particular case, there isn't enough cross traffic being generated by your subdivision right now. However, there is that vacant lot that is commercial for development, and that original traffic impact analysis did have a requirement for a light when that goes in. And I fully expect that when they go in, they'll be able to trip the warrants, they'll be able to produce enough traffic combined with your subdivision that will finally be able to get a traffic light out there. Our hope is that happens sooner than later, because again, I'm a huge proponent of putting the traffic light in, but we can only put it in when it's warranted. And quite frankly, this is an ADOT highway. The state won't allow it to go in either until it meets those particular warrants. I hope I answered all your questions. Feel free to ask.
Those responses address your questions?
Yeah. Yep, they sure did.
Okay, great. Thank you for your responses or questions. Next up is Tom McGowan, and on deck is Sarah Stone, and then Ross is after that. So Tom, you go ahead, you should be able to speak. And would you like your video turned on?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay, yep, we can hear you. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Michael. Paul, I have two questions. First of all, about what trips the aspects in order for traffic light. I noticed that the new traffic light up at Aerosmith, up at Rancho Vistosa, seems to have a less number of homes in that a traffic light was put in at that intersection. And I'd like to hear a comment relative to the one at Oracle and Ramsville Pass. The second one is, first of all, I want to applaud everybody that's involved in this project. This project is a fabulous project. I think all the way around, from an aesthetic point of view, from the survival of the marketplace in general, which could be an abandoned building if something didn't go in there, plus the need for a community gathering center, which we don't have in Oro Valley. You know, all of this has to offer, I think, is something that I'm excited about personally. One of the things that hasn't been talked about, and I'd like to ask this of you, and you may or may not have any figures for it. I don't know how much tax concessions were given to the developers for this particular project initially, but I'd like to hear that when the tax concession period is ended, if any, what the tax impact of additional taxes coming to the town of Oro Valley would be as a result of the full build out and successful operation of this project. Because that would affect everybody's taxes. And I'd just like to hear if there's been any calculations made along those regards, and I'll just unmute myself and thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much, Tom. And I've got your questions written down here, so we can go to Mr. Kiesler first about trip
Sure.
generation for a light.
Sure. So in particular with your particular street, or Ramsfield Canyon, the ratio between the amount of traffic on Oracle versus the cross traffic coming out of your subdivision, the ratio is too light. It's too light coming out of your subdivision. That's in contrast to up on Aerosmith, and frankly, the Aerosmith signal just barely met warrant. And it was because the ratio between the amount of traffic on Rancho Vistosa Boulevard and the ratio of traffic coming off of that Aerosmith Moore Road loop was more in balance, causing mathematically that warrant to actually be tripped. And I do believe, and I don't know the count off the top of my head, but there are several subdivisions along that road on Aerosmith that both east and west that are benefiting from that light. So you can't just concentrate on the east side of that intersection. There's also several subdivisions that empty onto it from the west side as well. So there's a lot more traffic on Aerosmith itself.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kiesler. And Ms. Sylvan, I was going to pass the tax question off to, well, give it to you, not pass it off to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. McGowan, thank you for your comments. So I just pulled up, we are having an economic analysis updated. And I don't have the updated one. So we will have more information at our September meeting, particularly related to the taxes. And I know that town of Oro Valley has embarked on an analysis as well, specifically related to the tax increase. That being said, we do have some economic impact numbers. We know that there'll be over 250,000 square feet of new commercial space, 634 residential units in the 270 hotel rooms. It's projected to have a construction cost of about $237 million. So obviously we need to multiply or divide for the tax to know what that is in construction sales tax. I can't remember what the percentage is in Oro Valley. There's also the jobs created just from the construction, 2,800 jobs, which is 116 million in wages. So we have we have some of those kinds of numbers. I know that's not directly answering your question, but I don't have the tax numbers at the ready. We are looking at it. It will have significant increases because it's bed tax, it's retail sales tax, and construction tax. I actually don't know the other part of your question, which was the, I have a piece of the other part, which is how much there was a sharing in retail sales tax with the original developer of the project. I don't know exactly how much in dollars that was. And that was in large part to offset their investment in Big Wash and actually constructing the River Park Trail in the area. That I believe has expired, but I'm hopeful town staff has that. So I've got the notes of your questions, and we will be prepared to answer those at the larger meeting. And I apologize, I don't have the updated economic report for you.
Okay, Mr. McGowan, did that answer your question? And while I wait for you to unmute on your end, I can say that yes, that original agreement with the original owners, Vestar, has expired. So with that,
That's fine. Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
sure. With that, I will go on to Sarah Stone is up next, and then Ross is on deck. So Miss Stone, you should be, would you like your video turned on?
Sure.
Okay. Should prompt you there. Go right ahead. We can hear you fine. Go ahead.
Okay. So I have just a basic question, and that's about the light situation and light pollution. And I'm wondering what studies have been done in terms of light pollution and how that's going to impact these communities that are basically against the base of the mountains and enjoying their evening starlight and that kind of thing. And that would be specifically for hotels, seeing the height is going to be higher, and it's very close to Oracle. I'm in off Ramsfield, and common space, parking lot areas. You know, what is the height restriction for lighting in the parking lot areas, that kind of thing, and how is it going to be radiating out, and what is that going to do to our nighttime environment in the community?
Okay, thank you for the question. Ms. Sylvan?
I will take a crack at it. Staff may want to respond as well. So Oro Valley abides by the outdoor lighting code, which is a requirement actually throughout our entire region. In addition to our residents throughout the region enjoying the night skies, we have a very strong astronomical employment base and research that goes on in this region that's really important to protect. So the lighting will all have to comply with the outdoor lighting code, which means that all lighting has to be shielded. It cannot trespass across the property lines. The lighting on signs is very limited as well. We are in a lot of ways, because we've got the parking, particularly for the apartments, the 2 apartments under the building, that's going to reduce the amount of lighting from parking lots. That's a significant amount of our parking that will now be covered. And then any of the other lighting in the parking lot would be similar to what's existing there. I don't know exactly what the heights are, but there are height limitations in the outdoor lighting code. I don't know, Mr. Spaeth, if there's anything else staff wants to add relative to the outdoor lighting code.
Sure. Yeah, I can add a little bit there. So, right. So our outdoor lighting code is based on what's commonly known as the dark skies ordinances around the county, which get at exactly what Ms. Sylvan was referring to limiting that light pollution for astronomy and just overall limitations on light pollution impacts. So, every single building that comes in, should this be approved in the future, is going to have to provide a lighting plan that is in conformance with those standards that are thoroughly looked at and reviewed. And for your question about light poles and common areas, you're not going to have any lighting poles taller than what's out there today, which were originally designed to meet that same outdoor lighting ordinance. There are limitations on how high exterior lights can be. They need to be at least partially shielded, if not fully shielded. And there are limitations on when business signage must be turned off as well, because obviously that can contribute to overall light pollution impacts as well. So that will certainly be looked at as part of each building plan that comes in, should this be approved. I hope that answers your question. Did you have other ones? Or does that get at your original question?
No, that's great. Thank you so much.
Sure, yep,
Appreciate it.
absolutely. Okay, thank you. All right, so Ross is up next, and then Christina DeMoro. Again, I apologize if I got that wrong. So Ross, you should be able to go. And then would you like your video turned on?
Sure.
Oh, I turned it off. Oh, come on. All right, go right ahead. We can hear you just
Okay,
fine.
hang on. Are we there?
Yep, go right ahead. We can hear you.
Okay. Okay. Is the video on?
It shows like it's on, but let's see. Let's scroll down here. Yes, we can see you.
Okay. I want to share some thoughts, and I want to go negative and then go for potential positive. How I think this project has huge potential. Preface my background. I grew up here. I've been an employee of WLB long ago in the past, when Sun City was being developed. And I got to say, they've done their homework and a lot of hard work putting out those plans. That being said, I'll just, if I may, go a little bit negative on the plan. And it's not really negative. It's just, if I jump in my car and I start heading towards Phoenix, and I know this because I'm working on a lot of projects up there, I get commercial development, large malls, I get this stuff. If I mosey further north to Scottsdale, it's the same. Go to Carefree, it's happening, the economy's booming, development's going on everywhere, et cetera, et cetera. And I noticed the other meeting, a lot of the complaints were very obvious, one of them being traffic down Oracle. I live in Rams Pass. I deal with the intersection, and these guys are talking about a stoplight. I happen to be glad there's not one there yet. I know it's eventually going to happen. When it does, if you live and drive that road every day, or if you live in Catalina going down, you hit those lights wrong, it's an ordeal getting through that part of Oro Valley. And it's neither here nor there. When that stoplight goes in, that problem will get worse. This huge development, you can't argue it away. You can do the parking lot studies. I know, I work with those. We do them downtown, and they've got problems already, and we produce it just the way it goes. All that being said, if I can switch to what I'd really like to see happen, Mr. Horvath, and are you with me, Mike? If I can share what I'd love to see happen, because I think it would, I'd like to see this project set Oro Valley apart from what I described as kind of mundane commercial development. And for some reason, I think it's been brought up in the past, is the idea of a river walk. And and the other thing is, there's a bunch of land to the west, the Wash, Big Wash right there, that at one time was slated, it looks like to me, when I looked at the historical maps, it was graded to be developed. What I'm wondering, and I know it's owned by Pima County right now, I believe, but what I'm thinking is, you capture 200 to 300 feet along that entire reach, you do a serious river walk through the middle of this development, potentially also starting up by Walmart, come down, you can go, the total length would be at least a half a mile, and you can trick it out with a lot more units along Water Harvest Way, businesses, restaurants. I Googled San Antonio Riverwalk. What I Googled economic benefits, they said $3.1 billion a year. That's a long river walk, but I divided it out for a half mile, and it was $103 million a year. I know this whole thing is about numbers and churning economic development. And I also know that there's 100 reasons people would say, no, you can't do it, you can't do it. But my comment and challenge to the town council and Mr. Horvath is I'd like to see you ramp this thing up, and rather than 237 million, spend what it takes to do a real river walk. You can gain a lot of units. And if you do that, my off the cuff opinion is the rents on all your apartments just went up 50 to $100. The caliber of hotels you're looking to build go way up. All your revenue goes up. Parking's an issue. You can
Ross,
charge for
just to let
parking.
you know, we're past your 3 minutes. So if you
Okay.
can finish
Well,
up,
anyway,
for us, I'd
you
appreciate it.
get the gist and the idea. I scribbled this up while earlier in the meeting. I don't know if you can see that, but that's my idea and thought. I know a lot about. You could easily encroach on that wash. There's no negative impacts, and I suspect you know that. I'll close it there. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Otherwise, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Up next is Christina DeMuro, and then on deck is Terry Lamour. So Christina, please feel free. We can hear you, I think.
Okay.
And if we can hear you, would you like your video turned on?
No, not necessary, because I'm on the plant site, so I'd rather
Okay.
not. But
Go
thank
right
you.
ahead.
So a lot of the concerns that are being voiced today have been voiced, have always been voiced, and they were part of the discussions on when we had that meeting back in March, as well. It sounded encouraging to know that when Mr. Sothersberg, who owns that lot that he just sort of paved, that once he built something on it, then that would probably constitute having a traffic light, which for those of us that live there, that have to come out of that community or even enter the community, we see a need for it already, even though it doesn't trigger, what ADOT requires. And so I look forward to that, and it's encouraging to know that that would be coming once that lot, once they build something on that lot. From a shopping perspective, okay, I don't shop in Oro Valley because there's nothing there. Okay, I mean, I do a little bit. I don't say I don't. Let me rephrase what I just said. I do grocery shopping in Oro Valley, but there are just so many things that are not in Oro Valley that I have to go into the town of Tucson to shop. I would prefer to put the dollars in my own community. So I'm excited about this project. I appreciate very much so much of the work and the research and analyses that have been done, and I'm encouraged. I'm also encouraged by the fact that I remember in our last meeting that the concern for wildlife, around us, that you won't be encroaching on that. There are areas that have been proposed, or developments have been proposed that go into like the Catalina Mountains, and I would not be for that, but you have a site already, and it would be wonderful to see that site flourish. So those are my comments. More encouraging than anything. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for your comments. Terry Lamour is up, and then on deck we have Barbara Finlayson. I hope I didn't butcher that too bad. Sorry if I did. So Terry, you should be ready to go. Please, would you like your video turned on?
No, thank you.
Okay, go right ahead. We can hear you.
Okay, I have basically two questions. First one is related to the whole Oracle Road situation. I know that ADOT is repaving, but it's south of us. Is the repaving going to come up this way? Because with these added traffic, it's just going to make this section of the road worse. Do you know if they're planning on paving up this far?
I can answer that question. I know Mr. Kieser would if he can add too. I believe that the plan at the moment is to actually only pave up to Calle Concordia on Oracle Road, but Mr. Kiesler, if you're still here, do you have other information for us?
Yeah, can you
Yep, go right ahead. We can hear
there
you.
we go. Yes. No, so, yes, no, they do plan on paving that. In fact, the repaving of Oracle Road is in 2 stages. So the first stage, which is underway right now, they should be wrapping up the main piece in Oro Valley here within the next 3 weeks. Then there's a second piece from Calle Concordia to Tangerine,
Thank
and
you.
it is going to be bid out this coming winter. I would expect sometime next summer is when they'll mobilize. And that's the reason they did the Oro Valley piece right now, is so that it could get done, they could get the bids out, and then the next contractor coming in could just button up to this phase 1 work.
Okay, that makes me feel better, especially if this plan is approved and we have the increased traffic. So my second question is, I know all of the planning has gone into the apartments and the hotel and the entertainment center, but what about the existing suites that have sat vacant since the beginning? Are there plans to get tenants in there, and not just anyone, but people that are going to be a betterment to the community?
Cool. Yep, I can pass that to Mr. Keister. Thank you for being here. That's why we have you here. Ms. Sylvan, can you answer the tenant question?
Yes, very good question. And I can tell you that Town West has been actively marketing, and you have seen some additional restaurants even during COVID come into some of those spaces. Some of them were replacements of some tenants that had recently gone away. The goal of any retail owner is to get those spaces filled. There's no question. And as I mentioned before, Town West is a local developer and is really focused on wanting to get some cool, neat stuff in there. We know there's a deep desire. The keg is fantastic, but we've heard over and over again that people want more options than going over to the keg for a beer. And we've also heard over and over again, and I appreciate your comment and the woman before you as well, that we want to do our shopping in Oro Valley and keep our sales tax here. So that is the goal, and that is the desire, and the sense is that part of bringing the apartments and the hotels is putting the people on the site who are going to be in addition to all of you, will be the folks who are going to be frequenting these places. And that is actually has been received. It's been really exciting for potential tenants. So I don't have anything to announce right now. There's a lot of excitement around this vision, and retailers want to see more people living in Oro Valley to be comfortable being up in this area, and that's what we're hoping to provide. So we're all aligned in that desire in a huge way, and hopefully we'll have some announcements soon.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Sylvan. Did that answer your question, Terry? Not sure where you went. Okay, up next, Barbara Finlayson, and then on deck is Joanna Meyer-Arison. So Barbara, please go right ahead. Make sure you're unmuted on your end. There you go. Would you like your video turned on?
No, I'm fine, thank you. But
Okay.
first of all, I want to say I love the ideas that you're presenting. I did attend the March meeting, and that was quite informative. And I'm just even more excited. And I thank you for trying to improve Oro Valley. But my question really is about safety for, especially for the Rams Pass neighborhood where I'm in, or Rams Canyon too. And that's how can we safely walk to the new village center from our subdivision. Are there any plans for sidewalks, crossing walks? Right now, we just have on our side, on the, let's see, the east side of the street, seems like there's just a bike path, but not a regular sidewalk. And I'm thinking if we don't have stoplight, that would be kind of difficult because we might not want to add to the traffic by driving there. It might be kind of a nice idea just to walk across the street and participate in the entertainment center.
Okay, yes, thank you very much for the question. I'm going to direct that to Mr. Kiesler.
Yeah, no, thank you for your question. You bring up a good point. The issue we have, it's a physical issue. So as you know, the bridge has a sound wall on it. There isn't enough room on that bridge with the sound wall to go ahead and be able to put a sidewalk on there.
Mm-hmm.
If there was a sidewalk, it would have to go down through the wash and connect up to the multi-use path that's on the north side of the CDO. So that's the crux of the matter. But it's something I'm going to bring up with ADOT and see where they are on this, because it's been an issue for years to be able to have that connectivity, not just to the marketplace, but the connectivity from your neighborhood to Catalina State Park.
Oh, good. Well, yes, I would appreciate you asking.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. Any other questions or comments? No, okay. Joanna Meyer-Arison is up. So Joanna, please go ahead. I see your video's on, so go when you're ready.
Okay. One of the things I'm always considering is that the jobs that are being created, especially in hospitality, tend to be low-wage jobs. And there are very few places that in Oro Valley that people can afford to live. So that means they're driving or commuting up from in the city. And our transportation up here, especially the public transportation, is really bad, or else they have to try to maintain a junky car. And one of the most difficult parts about being poor is traveling around and getting around to places. So what are we doing to mitigate the problems that will develop for the employees that will be needed to fill these jobs?
Yep, great question. Ms. Sylvan?
That is an incredibly difficult question to answer, but a very good one to ask. When the Oro Valley Marketplace was first, sorry.
I'm sorry.
When Oro Valley Marketplace was first developed, one of the amenities in the space is actually a transit stop, believe it or not. And it's got a couple bathrooms associated with it. I think Paul can speak to this better than I can, but there's not a lot that Oro Valley can control in bringing bus service, but we've at least created the space on the site. And I know that in some of the other areas, employers have been working to create systems to bring their employees on the site as well. But I think we're hoping for some robust transit. I'm going to shut up because I believe that Mr. Kiesler may have a better answer than what just came out of my mouth.
Mr. Kiesler?
Yeah, so thank you. And that's also a good question. And we are constantly working with Suntran and with the Regional Transportation Authority. The reason that we have not had good bus routes up here is there was not a large load for them to be able to service. There wasn't a lot of ridership. We had a run up here, and the ridership was just so low, it just was not economically feasible. However, the hope is as this center builds out with a lot of apartments that have the hotels, they'll have the retail, that we could further be able to have more discussions with both Suntran and the RTA about creating a permanent bus line up here that would make that connectivity. all the way down to the Ronstadt Transit Center. So that is something that those are conversations, and those are goals of the town to be able to have more on the public transportation side.
Ms. Meyer Harrison, did that answer your question?
That helps a lot. Yeah, it's just interesting. I know Oro Valley is trying to stay quote unquote high end, but there's also the need to keep in mind who's working to create that high end atmosphere.
Absolutely. Got to find the balance for sure. Thank you for your question. I don't see any other raised hands at the moment, so I could give it another few minutes here to, well, few moments here to see if anybody else has any other questions. Thank you very much for your input. And as always, if there are other questions that come up before the next neighborhood meeting and you want to reach out to us, feel free to always send that to ask@orovalleyaz.gov. We strongly encourage folks to do that at any time. So not seeing any other hands, I'm gonna go ahead and close up here. Go back to my. Lastly, I'd like to conclude by inviting everyone to stay engaged in this process. The video and PowerPoint presentations for all 4 focus area meetings will be uploaded to the project's webpage on ovprojects.com once completed. The next opportunity to hear about the project and provide feedback will be during the second formal neighborhood meeting in mid-September. I would like to again reiterate how vital it is to hear your comments and questions. Community participation is what makes Oro Valley a special place. Please send any questions and comments to ask@orovalleyaz.gov. Thank you again for your attendance this evening, and we look forward to seeing you at the second neighborhood meeting scheduled on September 13th. Stay in the know about all the upcoming meetings and project information by checking ovprojects.com under the project name shown on the slide. Thank you for your time and have a great evening.